Hello and welcome. In the last video, we discussed about creating the DAO class and implementing DAO methods. With the help of prepared statements, we had written the code in the methods. So now time is to create a service which will invoke these methods, and we'll also see the importance of service in a larger application. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to create a new class, interface, that too inside a package called com.ems.services, and here I'm going to write employee service, right? And then I'm going to provide all the uh, methods which your client or your tester or your presentation would call it. So as of now, my methods are similar to DAO methods. However, these methods might change. So there are going to be additional methods to write just a business logic. Let us say you are getting all the employees, and then you want to just find out those employees who are female employees. So that kind of code again you will write into service class. So you need to add additional methods. As of now, my methods are similar to what are there in DAO. So very quickly, I'm going to add public void add employee, or let me copy those methods to just save my time. We'll copy all of these methods from here and put into employee service, right? And I'm going to create a new implementation class. Okay, I'm going to create a new class, employee service MPL. MPL stands for implementation, and here I'm going to write implements employee service, and let me add all the methods which are there, right? So see, I need to add an employee. So for that, I will need the DAO object, right? So I'll first of all get the DAO object here as a private property, private. Now I'm using the interface reference. Understand, I'm not using the employee DAO IMPL reference. Remember, I told you that you should always use interfaces to achieve loose coupling. So now this code is independent of that implementation class. If there is any other implementation of employee DAO, I can add that later point in time if I want to change. So that's where always make use of interfaces. And then I'm going to create a constructor and add this DAO is equal to new employee DAO IMPL. So as of now, I'm creating employee DAO object, but when you use a framework like Spring, where it provides the dependency injection, you don't have to create a new object. Instead, you have to ask framework to give that object to you. So Spring framework will make your code loosely coupled. As of now, I'm creating this object, so I have to declare this as throws exception. Okay, fine. Now I have the object. I'm going to call those methods. So as of now, what I'll do, I will simply say DAO.add employee and employee. Okay, making it simpler. Here also DAO.remove employee ID, and here I will simply return DAO.get employee by ID, and in this also I am going to just return DAO.get employees, right? So as of now, this service layer doesn't do anything. It simply passes the data to DAO, and whatever data it receives from DAO, it is going to pass it to the controller or your tester class. One thing I'm going to show you here is what is the importance, or what kind of code you can write into service. All right, now I want to see whether this employee has a valid email or not, right? There is a field called email. So let me perform the validation. You can perform validation on each and everything, like your first name is valid or not, last name is valid, employee ID is valid or not, salary is valid or not. You can write all the validations, but I will show you only for one. You can go ahead and implement other methods as well. So for implementing the validation, I will create a validation utils class in the utils package. Here is my class validation utils. Okay, and I'm going to add public static method because I just don't want to create an object of validation utils to call this method, and void validate email, validate email that accepts an email, right? So right now uh, right now my validation is very simple. I just want to check if my email length is more than 5, less than 15 or not, and it contains @ and dot or not. Okay, we can do the validation by using regular expression also. I will bring that video later point in time, how to validate uh, data using regular expression. I will explain that in a separate video. So here I'm going to simply check now if email dot length uh, is less than 5, or email dot length is greater than 15. So it is not a valid email. It's not a valid email. Also, so this is one condition that I have. Okay, or let me just do this. Or email dot contains dot, I'm using not of it. Okay, so that if it's a false, then it is not valid. Or email, again not of, I should use email dot contains not of it, it doesn't contain, then this is invalid. So if this condition is true, means it's invalid, this is not a valid email. So what do I do? See, my return type is void. My return type is void. So when your return type is void and you want to communicate back to the caller that this is the problem which is occurred, that is where you use exception handling. That's where you raise the exception, you throw your exception. So right now, in earlier videos, like in DAO, what I did, I had thrown new exception itself. I have used this predefined exception class, but I want to create my own exception, so that I don't want to generalize it. I just don't want to throw exception, I want to throw my own exception. So you can create your exception class as well. So I'm going to create my custom exception also. So here, let me create a new class again, that too inside a package com.ems.exceptions. And here I'm going to create employee exception. And here I'm see how do you create a custom exception? There are two ways. One, you extend from exception class. Okay, this is going to be created as a checked exception, and other one is you created from runtime exception. This will create unchecked exception. So checked exception, you have to write a try and catch block. In runtime exception, unchecked exception, you don't need to write a try catch block. Your compiler will not force you to write a try catch block. So it's always better to create a checked exception, so that you write a try catch block or throws exception clauses. So here simply I'm going to create a constructor that accepts a message, string message, and this message will be passed back to the super class, super message. So what is happening here? This constructor accepts a message and it will pass it to the caller. Okay, let me check what is the warning. So you should always avoid the warnings. So it is asking you to avoid a default serial version ID. Just add it. Okay, in the exception class. So fine, so I just don't want to see my see the warning, so hence I have added the default serial version UID. Now here I will throw new employee exception, and here I'll say invalid email. So because I'm throwing, now you see, because I'm throwing this employee exception, I have to write throws clause here. So throws employee exception, right? And what now I'll do, I will go to my service, and before I pass this data, before I pass this object to DAO to insert into the table, I will validate. So validation utils dot validate email employee dot get email. So that email is authentic, I mean validated. If it is valid, it will go to the next line. If it is invalid, the exception will be raised and it will go to the caller directly from here, right? So that is the kind of code you can put into service. So you can perform all the validation, additional business logic you can put. So all of that you write into service, and DAO is only for writing your database logic, right? So that's all we have in this video. In the next video, we'll create a tester class and we'll call these methods in a menu driven application. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.